The massive ship floated in space like a metal mountain. Inside its command center, Admiral Kethvar stood 12 feet tall on 6 insect-like legs. His black shell gleamed under the bright lights as he stared at the holographic display floating before him. The image showed a blue and green planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Earth. Around the Admiral, dozens of alien beings filled the council chamber. Some looked like walking crystals that sparkled when they moved. Others were clouds of glowing gas trapped inside clear containers. A few had metal bodies with glowing eyes and spinning gears where their hearts should be. They all belonged to different species, but they shared one thing. They had ruled the galaxy together for 2,000 years. "The humans have gone too far," Admiral Kethvar announced. His voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "They were supposed to stay in their corner of space. We made that very clear when we first met them 300 years ago." The crystal beings chimed like bells when they spoke. "What have they done now?" "They built mining stations in the neutral zone," the Admiral replied. "The empty space between our territory and theirs, space that belongs to no one." He pointed at the display with one of his sharp, blade-like arms. "We told them to remove the stations. They said no." A cloud of green gas swirled angrily in its container. "How dare they refuse us? We have kept peace in this galaxy for 2 millennia. The metal beings clicked and whirred. Perhaps a show of force will remind them of their place. Admiral Kethvar nodded. "I have prepared a battle fleet. 50,000 ships. When the humans see our power, they will beg for mercy." He turned to face the council. "The 2,000-year peace is over. We go to war." The council members agreed with excited chatter. None of them had ever seen real war. Their species had solved all their problems with talking and trading for so long that they had almost forgotten what fighting looked like. But they remembered that they were strong, and humans were weak. Meanwhile, billions of light years away, President Sarah Chen sat in her office on New Geneva, humanity's capital world. The office had large windows that looked out over a city filled with tall buildings and flying cars. The morning sun cast long shadows across her desk as she read the message that had just arrived. The alien ultimatum was written in fancy language, but the meaning was simple. "Remove your mining stations or we will destroy them and you." Sarah laughed. She couldn't help it. The alien sounded like angry teachers scolding naughty children. She picked up her communication device and called her aide. "Schedule an emergency broadcast," she said. "I need to address the public in 1 hour." "What should I tell them it's about, Madam President?" Sarah looked at the alien message again and smiled. "Tell them we just got our first real challenge in 300 years. 1 hour later, Sarah stood before cameras that broadcast her image to every human world in the galaxy. Behind her, the flag of United Earth fluttered gently in the artificial breeze. She held up the alien message and began to read. "To the humans of Earth and all human colonies," she read aloud, doing her best to copy the serious tone of the original message. "You have violated the sacred laws of space by entering the neutral zone. Remove your illegal mining operations immediately, or face the full might of the Zephyrian hegemony. You have 7 standard days to comply. This is your only warning." Sarah looked directly into the camera. "Well, folks, it looks like someone finally got tired of watching us spread across the galaxy." She grinned. "They want us to abandon our mining stations because we're making them nervous." Across human space, people stopped what they were doing to watch their president. In offices and factories, on farms and space stations, humans gathered around screens to hear what she would say next. "Now, I could tell you to be afraid," Sarah continued. "These aliens have ruled the galaxy for 2,000 years. They have technology we can only dream of. Their ships are bigger than our cities, but you know what?" She paused and let her grin grow wider. "I think they're the ones who should be afraid." Laughter erupted across human space. Not nervous laughter or scared laughter, but the kind of laughter that comes when someone tells a really good joke. Humans shared the broadcast on their social networks with comments like, "Did they just threaten US?" And "Someone's about to learn why we conquered our own planet before we left it." Within minutes, the internet exploded with memes. Pictures of cute alien creatures with angry faces and captions like, "When Grandpa finally gets off the porch." Videos of human soldiers doing training exercises with the caption, "What aliens think war looks like versus what humans think war looks like." One popular meme showed a peaceful alien garden next to a human military parade with the words, 2,000 years of peace versus 300 years of practice. On the military base outside the capital city, General Marcus Rodriguez watched the president's speech with his senior officers. Unlike the civilians, they weren't laughing. They were excited. "Sir," said Colonel Park, his intelligence officer, "we've been monitoring alien communications for the past 6 hours. They're mobilizing their fleets." "How many ships?" Rodriguez asked. "Best guess?" 50,000. Rodriguez whistled softly. "That's a lot of ships." "Yes, sir. But there's something else. Our analysis shows these ships haven't been used for actual fighting in 2,000 years. They're basically flying museums." The general nodded slowly. "What about their crews?" "Same story, sir. The youngest alien commander has never seen real combat. They've been playing at being soldiers for so long they've forgotten what soldiers actually do." Rodriguez stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over the base. He could see human soldiers running training exercises, pilots practicing, in-flight simulators, and engineers testing new weapons. Even in peacetime, humans never stop preparing for war. "They think this is going to be easy," he said. "They think we'll see their big fleet and surrender without a fight." "Will we?" "Sir?" asked a young lieutenant. Rodriguez turned back to his officers with a smile that would have worried the aliens if they could have seen it. "Lieutenant, these aliens have had peace for 2,000 years. They've never had to fight for anything. They've never had to struggle or compete or prove themselves." He gestured toward the training grounds outside. "We've been fighting since we lived in caves. We fought animals, we fought the weather, we fought each other, and we fought our own planet just to survive long enough to reach the stars." The officers nodded. They understood. "They're about to learn the difference between keeping peace and being ready for war," Rodriguez continued. "And I think they're going to get the education of their lives." Back in the civilian areas of the city, the laughter was still going strong. Humans were already making jokes about the coming war. They shared stories about their ancestors who had fought in Earth's wars, back when humans only had one planet. They talked about how their great-grandparents would have laughed at aliens who thought 7 days was enough time to scare humanity into backing down. In the bars and restaurants, people toasted the aliens for finally giving humanity something interesting to do. "To the Zephyrian hegemony," they said, raising their glasses, "for reminding us why we built all those ships we thought we'd never need." The aliens, monitoring human communications from their distant ships, could not understand what they were seeing. They had expected panic, fear, maybe desperate attempts to negotiate. Instead, they found humans making jokes and treating the declaration of war like entertainment. Admiral Kethvar stared at the reports with growing confusion. These humans were acting like they wanted to fight, like they were looking forward to. It made no sense. How could any species be excited about war? The Zephyrian war fleet moved through space like a slow river of metal and light. 50,000 ships of every size and shape floated in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. At the center of the fleet, Admiral Kethvar stood in the command center of his flagship, studying holographic displays that showed human space. The displays were not impressive. Human colonies looked messy and unplanned compared to the neat, organized worlds of the hegemony. Their cities grew in strange patterns, their ships moved in chaotic groups, and their space stations looked like they had been built by children, playing with metal blocks. "Look at this," Admiral Kethvar said to his second-in-command, a creature that looked like a walking tree made of silver metal. "Their largest city has no logical design. Streets go everywhere with no pattern. How can they function like this?" The metal tree rustled its branches thoughtfully. "Perhaps chaos is natural for primitive species." On the screens, they could see human ships moving between planets. The vessels were small and boxy, nothing like the sleek, elegant ships of the hegemony. They looked slow and clumsy, built for carrying cargo rather than fighting wars. "Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours," the Admiral continued. Their fastest ships move like slugs. Their weapons are simple projectile launchers. This will be easier than we thought. Around the command center, other alien officers nodded in agreement. They had studied human technology and found it lacking in every way. Humans still used chemical rockets for some of their ships. They built their space stations out of metal instead of growing them from living crystal. Their computers were made of silicon and wires instead of quantum-folded thought matrices. "How long until we reach their territory?" asked the metal tree. 6 standard days, replied the admiral. "We will arrive exactly when our ultimatum expires. When they see our fleet, they will surrender immediately." The aliens had good reason to be confident. Their ships were masterpieces of technology. The smallest vessel in their fleet was larger than anything humans had ever built. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could stop anything short of a star going supernova, and their sensors could detect a single human ship from 10 light-years away. But more importantly, they had experience. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 2,000 years. They knew how to handle young species who got too confident. A show of overwhelming force had always been enough to bring troublemakers back in line. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Rodriguez sat in an underground command center buried deep beneath the planet's surface. The room was filled with screens showing every human world, every ship, and every military base across 47 star systems. Officers rushed back and forth carrying reports and updating displays with new information. "Sir," called Colonel Park from her station, "we've got the full intelligence report on the alien fleet." Rodriguez walked over to look at her screens. The information was impressive and frightening at the same time. 50,000 ships, each one more advanced than anything in the human fleet. Weapons that could crack moons, shields that could laugh off nuclear explosions, engines that could cross the galaxy in weeks instead of months. "Scary stuff," Rodriguez said calmly. "What else do we know?" "That's the interesting part, sir," Park replied. She brought up a new display showing the alien fleet's formation. "Look at how they're arranged. Perfect spacing, textbook formation, everything exactly where the manual says it should be." Rodriguez studied the formation for a moment. "They're following the rules." "Exactly, sir. Every ship in exactly the right position. No scouts out ahead, no flanking forces, no irregular patterns. They're flying like they're in a parade." The general nodded slowly. He had seen formations like this before, in military academies where young officers learned to march in perfect lines. It looked impressive, but it wasn't how real armies moved when they expected real fighting. "What about their communications?" he asked. "Wide open, sir. They're not even trying to hide their signals. We can hear everything they're saying to each other." Park pulled up another screen showing intercepted alien messages. "They're discussing which restaurants to visit after the humans surrender." Rodriguez almost smiled. "Almost. Send a message to all fleet commanders. Tell them to prepare for Operation Schoolyard." As the orders went out across human space, something remarkable began to happen. The messy, chaotic human colonies that the aliens had dismissed as primitive suddenly began to change. The strange, unplanned cities revealed their hidden purpose as factories that had been disguised as normal buildings, began producing ships and weapons. The cluttered space stations opened secret bays filled with military equipment that had been waiting for exactly this moment. On the mining worlds that had started this whole crisis, the miners put down their tools and picked up military gear that they had hidden in the asteroid belts. These weren't just workers who had been drafted into service. Many of them were retired soldiers who had volunteered for mining duty specifically because they knew someone would eventually try to stop human expansion. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Murphy's Law, and watched his crew make final preparations. The ship looked like an ordinary cargo hauler from the outside, but appearances could be deceiving. Hidden beneath the hull were weapons that could punch holes through battleships, and the cargo bays had been converted into fighter launch platforms. "All stations report ready, Captain," said his first officer, a woman who had once commanded a destroyer in the Earth Defense Fleet. Morrison nodded. "Remember, people, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to teach these aliens something they should have learned a long time ago." "What's that, sir?" asked a young engineer. that there's a difference between being peaceful and being harmless. The Murphy's Law wasn't alone. Across the neutral zone, dozens of civilian ships were making similar preparations. Freighters revealed hidden weapon systems, passenger liners deployed military-grade sensors, and mining ships loaded projectile launchers with chunks of metal that would hit alien vessels like artificial meteors. Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in her office at the Strategic Intelligence Center, surrounded by screens showing alien fleet movements. She had spent her entire career studying alien technology and tactics, preparing for the day when humanity would need to defend itself against superior forces. The aliens have one critical weakness, she told her team during their final briefing. They think war is about having better technology. They believe that superior ships and weapons automatically lead to victory. Don't they? Asked one of her analysts. Not always, Vasquez replied. Technology only matters if you know how to use it. The aliens have had the best technology in the galaxy for 2,000 years, but they've never had to use it against anyone who fought back, she brought up a historical analysis on her main screen. Look at their past conflicts. Every time they've had trouble with a species, they've solved it the same way. Show up with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and wait for the inevitable capitulation. It's worked every time. Until now, said another analyst. Until now, Vasquez agreed. They're about to meet a species that doesn't surrender just because the enemy has bigger guns. They're going to learn that humans have been preparing for this fight since before their empire even existed. The truth was, something the aliens couldn't understand, because they had never experienced it. Human peace was not the absence of conflict. It was the result of preparing so thoroughly for conflict that nobody wanted to test them. Every human child grew up hearing stories of ancient wars, learning strategy and tactics in school, and understanding that their peaceful existence depended on their ability to fight when necessary. The aliens had peace because nobody had challenged them in 2,000 years. Humans had peace because they had proven over and over again that challenging them was a very bad idea. As the alien fleet continued its slow advance toward human space, confident in their technological superiority and certain of easy victory, they had no idea that they were walking into a trap 2,000 years in the making. The humans weren't just ready for this war. They had been waiting for it. Kepler Station floated in the darkness between the stars, a small mining outpost built into a large asteroid. From the outside, it looked abandoned. The docking bays were empty, the lights were turned off, and no signals came from its communication arrays. To Admiral Kethvar, watching the station through the sensors of his approaching fleet, it looked like the humans had already run away. Pathetic, the Admiral muttered as his formation of 200 ships moved toward the station. He had brought only a small part of his massive fleet for this first strike, expecting the humans to surrender as soon as they saw alien ships approaching. They couldn't even be bothered to defend their own property. The metal tree beside him rustled in agreement. Perhaps this will be easier than we thought. But as the alien ships drew closer, their sensors detected something unexpected. A single human ship sat near the station, looking small and harmless next to the approaching alien fleet. It was clearly a civilian vessel, probably a cargo hauler or mining ship. One ship? Asked the metal tree. That's their entire defense? Admiral Kethvar studied the readings. The human ship was broadcasting an identification signal. Murphy's Law, Captain Jake Morrison commanding. It seemed to be a simple freighter, nothing that could threaten even the smallest alien vessel. Open communications, the Admiral ordered. A moment later, the face of a human appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, wearing the simple clothes of a space worker. Behind him, the bridge of his ship looked cluttered and worn, like it had been used for hard work rather than military operations. You boys lost? The human asked casually. This is a construction zone. Might want to watch out for falling rocks. Admiral Kethvar drew himself up to his full 12-foot height. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian hegemony. You are in violation of galactic law by operating in the neutral zone. Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed. The human named Morrison scratched his chin thoughtfully. Galactic law, huh? That's interesting. See, nobody told us there was such a thing when we built this place. He gestured toward the mining station. We've been working here for 5 years now. Haven't bothered anybody. You were ordered to remove this station, the Admiral replied. You refused. Now you will face the consequences. Morrison nodded slowly. Well, since you asked so nicely, he turned to someone off-screen. Mary, open the cargo bay doors. The aliens watched in confusion as the human freighter's cargo bay opened. They expected to see surrender flags or perhaps mining equipment being jettisoned. Instead, they saw something that made their sensors scream warnings. The cargo bay had been converted into a massive weapons platform. Rows of projectile launchers pointed directly at the alien fleet, loaded with chunks of dense metal that gleamed under the ship's lights. It wasn't sophisticated alien technology, but it didn't need to be. In space, even a small piece of metal, moving fast enough, could punch through the hull of a ship. Fire, Morrison said quietly. The Murphy's Law erupted in light and motion. Hundreds of metal projectiles shot out of the cargo bay at incredible speed, crossing the space between the human ship and the alien fleet in seconds. The aliens, caught completely off guard, barely had time to raise their shields before the barrage hit them. The first wave of projectiles slammed into 3 alien ships, overwhelming their shields and punching through their hulls like bullets, through paper. Atmosphere rushed out of the breaches, carrying debris and unlucky crew members into the vacuum of space. Alarms blared across the alien fleet as commanders tried to understand what had just happened. Impossible, Admiral Kethvar shouted. Their weapons are primitive. Our shields should have stopped everything. But the humans had done their homework. They knew exactly how alien shields worked, and they had designed their weapons to exploit their weaknesses. The metal projectiles weren't just chunks of rock. They were specially shaped pieces of ultra-dense materials that could penetrate energy barriers through sheer kinetic force. The Murphy's Law didn't wait for the aliens to recover. The ship spun in place and fired again, then again, each salvo aimed at a different part of the alien formation. Human weapons might have been simple, but they were effective, and Morrison's crew knew how to use them. The alien fleet tried to return fire, but their weapons were designed for destroying planets and space stations, not fighting small, fast-moving targets. Their massive energy beams moved too slowly to track the human ship as it darted between asteroids, using the mining station's debris field for cover. How are they moving so fast? Demanded the metal tree. Our sensors show their engines are inferior to ours. They're not relying on their engines, Admiral Kethvar realized with growing horror. They're using gravitational slingshots around the asteroids. They're treating this like a 3-dimensional maze instead of open space. It was a tactic that required perfect timing and incredible skill. The humans had to calculate the gravitational pull of dozens of rocky bodies while avoiding alien weapons fire and positioning themselves for their next attack. It was the kind of flying that took years to master, the kind of experience that came from working in dangerous environments where one mistake meant death. The aliens had never needed to develop such skills. Their technology was so advanced that they had always been able to overwhelm problems with superior firepower. They had never learned to be clever or desperate or creative in the way that humans had to be just to survive. For 47 minutes, the Murphy's Law danced through the asteroid field, striking again and again at the alien fleet. Each attack was perfectly planned and expertly executed. The humans targeted specific systems on the alien ships, engines, communication arrays, weapon platforms, crippling their enemies without completely destroying them. Morrison wanted the aliens to escape. He wanted them to go back to their fleet and tell everyone what they had seen. By the time the battle ended, 37 alien ships had been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The surviving vessels retreated in disorder, their crews in shock from experiencing real combat for the first time in their lives. The Murphy's Law, its ammunition finally exhausted, hung motionless in space near Kepler Station. The ship was heavily damaged, its hull scarred by alien weapons fire, but it was still functional. Admiral Kethvar stared at the human vessel on his screen, trying to understand what had just happened. A single primitive ship had defeated a significant portion of his fleet. It didn't make sense according to everything he knew about warfare and technology, Sir, reported one of his officers, we're receiving a transmission from the human ship. Morrison's face appeared on the screen again. He looked tired but satisfied, like a worker who had finished a difficult job. Well, that was fun, he said. You folks have a nice day now, and next time you're in the neighborhood, maybe call ahead. The transmission ended, leaving the aliens in stunned silence. As the surviving alien ships limped away from Kepler Station, they had no idea that their problems were just beginning. The human ship had been broadcasting the entire battle on an encrypted channel, sending tactical data and sensor readings to every human military base in the galaxy. Within hours, human commanders across 47 star systems were studying the alien weaknesses that Morrison had discovered. They learned about shield frequencies, weapon cycling times, and tactical blind spots. Most importantly, they learned that the aliens fought like they were still in training exercises, following outdated manuals instead of adapting to real combat conditions. On Earth, General Rodriguez watched the battle recordings with his senior staff. The room was quiet except for the sound of explosions and weapons fire coming from the speakers. Morrison did good work, the general said when the recording ended. But this was just the opening act. Sir? Asked Colonel Park. Rodriguez stood up and walked to a large display showing human space. Red dots marked the positions of civilian ships, green dots showed military vessels, and blue dots indicated hidden supply depots and weapon caches. The aliens think they just fought one crazy miner who got lucky, he explained. They have no idea that Morrison is a retired destroyer, captain who volunteered for this mission specifically. They don't know that every civilian ship in our territory has been modified for combat. And they certainly don't realize that we've been monitoring their communications and learning their tactical procedures for the past 300 years. The officers nodded in understanding. The Battle of Kepler Station hadn't been a lucky accident. It had been a carefully planned demonstration designed to teach the aliens that their technological superiority wouldn't be enough to guarantee victory. What's our next move, sir? Asked Colonel Park. Rodriguez smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Now we show them what happens when humans stop playing defense. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Kepler Station, and the galaxy had changed in ways the aliens could never have imagined. What they had expected to be a quick police action had turned into a nightmare that grew worse with each passing day. Admiral Kethvar stood in his command center, staring at reports that made no sense. His once mighty fleet of 50,000 ships had been reduced to fewer than 30,000. The humans had not won any major battles. They had simply made it impossible for the alien fleet to function. Human ships appeared everywhere and nowhere. They struck at supply convoys moving between alien worlds, destroyed communication relays that the hegemony had relied on for 2,000 years, and attacked isolated alien vessels with tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Sir, reported his intelligence officer, a crystalline being whose surface flickered with nervous light. We've lost another supply convoy in the Vega system. 15 ships destroyed, all cargo stolen. How many human ships? The admiral asked, though he already knew the answer would be frustrating. The survivors report seeing 3 vessels, sir. All appeared to be converted civilian craft. Admiral Kethvar wanted to scream. 3 ships against 15, and the humans had won again. It was impossible, except that it kept happening. The humans didn't fight fair battles where superior technology could decide the outcome. They ambushed isolated convoys, set traps in asteroid fields, and used suicide attacks that shocked alien crews who had never seen anyone willing to die for their cause. What about the human fleet movements, he asked. The crystalline officer's light dimmed with worry. That's the problem, sir. We can't track their fleet movements because they don't seem to have a fleet in the traditional sense. This was the most disturbing discovery of all. The aliens had expected to face the human military in proper battles, ship against ship, formation against formation. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that had no central fleet, no main base, and no apparent command structure. Human ships operated in small groups that acted independently, coordinating their attacks through methods the aliens couldn't understand or intercept. When alien forces moved to engage one group, they would find empty space. When they tried to protect important targets, the humans would attack somewhere completely different. It was like fighting smoke. Meanwhile, at Proxima Gate, the main jump point between human and alien space, Commander Lisa Park stood on the bridge of the UES Unconquerable and watched the alien fleet approach. Unlike the ragtag civilian ships that had been harassing alien supply lines, the Unconquerable was a true warship, one of the first vessels designed specifically for fighting aliens. The ship was sleek and deadly, built with technology that the aliens didn't know humans possessed. Its hull was covered with armor that could absorb energy weapons. Its engines could accelerate faster than anything in the alien fleet, and its weapons were designed to exploit every weakness that 6 months of combat had revealed. Enemy fleet, dropping out of hyperspace, reported her tactical officer. 40 ships, Dreadnought class. Park nodded calmly. The alien commander was Admiral Kethvar himself, come to Proxima Gate with his remaining heavy ships to crush what he thought was a human stronghold. He was about to discover that humans had been very busy during the past 6 months. Open communications, Park ordered. Admiral Kethvar's image appeared on the main screen, his insect-like features twisted with anger and frustration. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship showed the organized chaos of a fleet preparing for battle. Human commander, the admiral said in his scraping voice. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian hegemony. You will surrender immediately or face annihilation. Commander Park smiled. Admiral, you've been trying to annihilate us for 6 months. How's that working out for you? The alien's mandibles clicked with rage. Your terrorist attacks end here. We will destroy your pathetic fleet and end this rebellion once and for all. Terrorist attacks? Park laughed. Admiral, we call that war. You should look it up sometime. She leaned forward in her chair. You want to know the difference between us? You've had peace for 2,000 years. We've had it for maybe 20, minutes at a time, and only when we were reloading. The transmission ended, and Admiral Kethvar immediately ordered his fleet to attack. 40 massive alien ships moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons charging and their shields at maximum power. They expected to overwhelm the single human vessel with superior firepower. Instead, they flew directly into the most sophisticated trap ever constructed. The space around Proxima Gate erupted with hidden weapons platforms that had been disguised as asteroids and space debris. Hundreds of automated missile launchers opened fire simultaneously, filling the space between the fleets with deadly projectiles that moved too fast for alien point defense systems to stop. But that was only the beginning. As the alien ships struggled to deal with the missile barrage, more human vessels appeared from behind planets and moons where they had been hiding. These weren't converted civilian craft. They were military ships built specifically for this moment, equipped with weapons and tactics that the aliens had never seen before. The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks, with precision that made the aliens' perfect formations look clumsy and slow. They used their superior speed and maneuverability to stay out of range of alien weapons while striking at vulnerable points on the massive enemy ships. Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart by enemies who fought like no civilized species should fight. The humans targeted life support systems, destroyed communication arrays, and disabled engines rather than simply trying to destroy ships outright. They wanted alien crews to survive long enough to understand what was happening to them. Sir, shouted his tactical officer, the humans are using our own tactics against us. It was true. The human ships were employing modified versions of alien battle strategies, but with improvements that made them devastatingly effective. They had studied every alien tactical manual, analyzed every historical battle, and created countermeasures for every standard hegemony procedure. But more than that, they had added something the aliens had never developed: creativity born from desperation. While the aliens followed their manuals exactly, the humans improvised and adapted, turning every battle into a learning experience that made them stronger. The Battle of Proxima Gate lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the alien fleet had been completely destroyed, with most crews captured rather than killed. Admiral Kethvar himself was taken prisoner when his flagship's engines were disabled and boarding parties swarmed aboard. As the Admiral was led through the corridors of the Unconquerable, he saw something that shook him to his core. The human ship's interior wasn't filled with primitive technology as he had expected. Instead, he saw computer systems more advanced than anything the hegemony possessed. Weapon designs that incorporated alien technology with human innovations, and crew members who moved with the confidence of people who had been born for war. Commander Park met him in the ship's conference room, where displays showed the current state of the conflict. Red markers indicated destroyed alien ships, blue markers showed human victories, and green markers represented captured alien technology. How? Admiral Kethvar asked, his voice barely a whisper. Your species has only been in space for 300 years. We have ruled the galaxy for 2 millennia. Park poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down across from him. That's your problem right there, Admiral. You've been ruling. We've been fighting. She gestured toward the displays. Do you see those markers? Every red dot represents something. We learned about your weaknesses. Every blue dot shows us adapting and improving. Every green dot is your technology being turned against you. The alien stared at the displays with growing understanding. You've been preparing for this war since you met us. Longer than that, Park replied. We've been preparing for this war since we learned to make fire. The only difference is that now we know who we're fighting. Admiral Kethvar looked around the conference room and realized something that terrified him more than any weapon. The humans weren't angry or cruel or savage, as he had expected. They were calm, professional, and methodical. They had turned war into a science, and they were very good at it. What do you want? He asked. Commander Park finished her coffee and stood up. We want you to go back to your people and tell them exactly what you've seen here. Tell them that this war isn't going to end the way they think it is. Tell them that humans don't surrender, we don't negotiate from weakness, and we don't stop fighting until our enemies understand that attacking us was the biggest mistake they ever made. She walked to the door, then paused and looked back at him. And Admiral, tell them that everything they've seen so far was just us warming up. As Admiral Kethvar was escorted to a transport ship that would take him back to alien space, he carried with him the knowledge that would change the galaxy forever. The 2,000-year peace wasn't just over, it was being replaced by something entirely new. The age of human dominance had begun. 1 year after the war began, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different than it had during Admiral Kethvar's confident declaration. The crystalline beings no longer chimed with authority. Their surfaces were dull with fear. The gas, clouds swirled nervously in their containers. The metal beings sat motionless, their glowing eyes dimmed with defeat. At the center of the chamber, Admiral Kethvar stood once again, but now he was no longer the proud commander of a mighty fleet. Half of his legs had been replaced with mechanical prosthetics after his capture at Proxima Gate. His shell bore scars from human weapons, and his voice shook when he spoke. Council members, he began, struggling to maintain his composure. I must report that our position is no longer sustainable. The human fleet has penetrated deep into our territory. They control 15 systems that belonged to us a year ago, and their forces are advancing toward our core worlds. The chamber erupted, in panicked chatter. A crystalline being near the front spoke first, its voice high and cracking like breaking glass. How is this possible? We had 50,000 ships. Had, Admiral Kethvar repeated bitterly. We now have fewer than 8,000 vessels capable of combat, and most of those are trapped defending our home worlds. The humans have destroyed our supply lines, captured our weapon factories, and turned our own technology against us. A gas cloud swirled angrily. You said this would be easy. You said they would surrender when they saw our power. I was wrong, the Admiral admitted. We all were wrong. We thought war was about having better ships and weapons. The humans have taught us that war is about understanding your enemy and being willing to do whatever it takes to win. The truth was even worse than Admiral Kethvar described. The humans hadn't just defeated the alien fleet, they had dismantled the entire foundation of alien civilization. The hegemony's power had always depended on other species believing that resistance was impossible. Now that humans had proven aliens could be beaten, rebellions were breaking out across the galaxy. Species that had been peaceful subjects for centuries were now building their own fleets and demanding independence. The hegemony faced not just a war with humanity, but the complete collapse of their empire. In the middle of this chaos, the chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Every alien turned to see who dared interrupt their emergency session. What they saw made them freeze in terror. A human woman walked into the chamber, flanked by two guards in dark military uniforms. She was tall and confident, with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her came a small group of humans carrying briefcases and computer tablets. "Council members," the woman said in perfect galactic standard, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "I am Ambassador Chen, representing the United Earth government and all human colonies. I believe you've been expecting us." Admiral Kethvar stared at her in shock. "How did you get here? This station is protected by our most advanced security systems." Ambassador Chen smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "Admiral, your security systems were designed by the same people who thought 50,000 ships would be enough to defeat us. We've been monitoring your communications and movements for the past 6 months. We knew about this meeting before you did." She walked to the center of the chamber, moving with the casual confidence of someone who owned the room. "Now then, shall we discuss terms?" The aliens looked at each other in confusion. "Terms?" asked a metal being. "What terms?" "The terms of your surrender," Ambassador Chen replied calmly. "The 2,000-year peace is over and you lost the war that replaced it. The question now is whether you want to end this with dignity or have us finish what you started." A crystalline being flared with angry light. "Surrender? We still control most of the galaxy. Our technology is still superior to yours." "Ambassador," Chen nodded to one of her assistants, who activated a holographic projector. The chamber filled with displays showing the current state of the galaxy. Red areas showed human-controlled space. Blue areas marked territories in rebellion against the hegemony, and the shrinking green sections represented what was left of alien control. "Your technology is superior," the ambassador agreed. "But technology doesn't win wars. People do. And right now, most of the people in this galaxy are fighting against you, not for you." The displays showed the devastating scope of human success. Not only had they captured alien territory, but they had inspired dozens of other species to rebel against hegemony rule. The galaxy was dissolving into chaos, and the aliens were powerless to stop it. "What do you want from us?" Admiral Kethvar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ambassador Chen walked over to where he stood and looked up at his towering form without showing any fear. "We want you to do something you should have done 2,000 years ago. We want you to earn peace instead of just demanding it." She turned to address the entire council. "The old system is dead. You can't maintain control through intimidation anymore because everyone knows you can be beaten. But that doesn't mean the galaxy has to descend into permanent war." The ambassador gestured toward the holographic displays. "Humans aren't interested in ruling an empire. We never were. We just wanted to explore and build and grow without someone telling us where we could go. But if you force us to choose between freedom and peace, we'll choose freedom every time." A gas cloud swirled uncertainly. "What are you proposing?" "A new kind of peace," Ambassador Chen replied. "Not peace through fear or domination, but peace through strength and mutual respect. We're proposing the creation of a new galactic government, one where every species has a voice, where conflicts are resolved through negotiation instead of threats, and where the military exists to protect everyone instead of enforcing the will of a few." The aliens murmured among themselves. The idea was radical beyond anything they had ever considered. For 2 millennia, peace had meant that strong species controlled weak ones. The humans were suggesting something that had never been tried on a galactic scale. "And if we refuse?" asked a metal being. Ambassador Chen's expression hardened. "Then you'll discover that everything you've seen so far was just us being polite. You declared war on us, remember? We didn't start this fight, but we're very good. at finishing them. As if summoned by her words, the chamber's main display activated to show the space around the council station. What the aliens saw made their blood run cold. Surrounding their supposedly secret meeting place was the largest human fleet ever assembled. Thousands of ships that had appeared without triggering a single alarm. At the center of the formation was a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest alien dreadnoughts. On its hull, clearly visible, was painted the name Murphy's Law and the image of a grinning human skull. "Captain Morrison sends his regards," Ambassador Chen said with a slight smile. "He wanted to be here personally, but he's been promoted to Admiral and he's rather busy these days." Admiral Kethvar stared at the display in disbelief. The mining ship that had started this whole war had been transformed into a flagship that could destroy planets. It was a perfect symbol of what the humans had accomplished, taking something simple and turning it into something terrifying. "You have a choice," the ambassador continued. "You can accept our proposal for a new galactic government, one where conflicts are resolved peacefully and every species is protected by law instead of force. Or you can continue this war and see what happens when humans stop holding back." The aliens looked at each other, seeing the fear in their allies' eyes. They had learned too much about human capabilities to doubt the threat. If the humans decided to truly unleash their military power, the hegemony would be wiped from existence within months. "What guarantees do we have?" asked a crystalline being. "How do we know you won't simply replace our empire with your own?" Ambassador Chen smiled, and this time it was genuinely warm. "Because we have something you never developed. We have checks and balances. Human government is designed to prevent any one group from gaining too much power. We've been fighting tyranny for so long that we've gotten very good at stopping it, even when it comes from ourselves." She gestured toward her assistants, who began distributing data tablets to the council members. "These contain our detailed proposals for the new galactic government. Study them. Discuss them with your people. Take all the time you need." "How much time?" asked Admiral Kathavar. "As long as you need," the ambassador replied. "But remember, every day you delay is another day that other species have to decide they don't need your permission to be free. The old galaxy is dying whether you help us build a new one or not." As the humans prepared to leave, Ambassador Chen paused at the chamber doors and looked back at the aliens one final time. "Oh, and one more thing," she said. "The 2,000-year peace was never really peace at all. It was just the absence of anyone strong enough to challenge you. What we're offering you now is something your species has never experienced. Real peace, backed by the kind of strength that makes war unnecessary." She smiled. "Admiral Morrison likes to say that 2,000 years of peace through ignorance is enough. Now let's try 2,000 years of peace through strength." As the doors closed, behind the humans, the aliens sat in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened.